For those watching on television, it's 28 degrees in here.
Is that what it is?
I don't know what it is, but let it be said the air conditioning in the Senate works.
Just take a mental note that Lindsay is setting up his place in front of him. Now, in the beginning, it's quite normal to sit there and place things around and put them in comfortable positions for yourself. So one, it's not in the way, nor like a glass of water do you want to accidentally knock it over on yourself. But in the beginning, it's like, mental note, he's done it. Everything's placed where it should be. So if he keeps doing it, it becomes a tell.
Thank you all. We're going to have a hearing today about all things Crossfire Hurricane and the Mueller investigation. We'll have 5-minute rounds, and as usual, I'll try to make sure you are not cut off at 5 minutes and finish your thought. And I appreciate all the participation.
And of course, as we watch this, he's continuing and really not moving anything. He's just fiddling. So this hearing stresses him. And if you know and have been listening to our body language episodes, well, then you know Lindsay. Also, I will reference now that we did one on Rosenstein before, and we've already caught him helping Mueller. So there should be no surprises, because we already know he's a snake.
Rosenstein, thank you very much for coming to the committee voluntarily, and we appreciate your service to our country and your participation in the hearing today. And I'll try to do a pretty short opening statement, Senator Feinstein, then we'll get right to the witness. So why are we here? I think we have a clip that I'd like to play now. This is of Mr. Rosenstein, May 1st, 2018.
It really does illustrate, though.
Wait a minute. Turn it up. Stop.
The distinction between the way we operate in the department, and we make mistakes. That's not to say we're flawless, but the way we operate in the Department of Justice, if we're going to accuse somebody of wrongdoing, we have to have admissible evidence and credible witnesses. We need to be prepared to prove our case in court, and we have to affix our signature to the charging document. That's something that not everybody appreciates. There's a lot of talk about FISA applications, and many people that I see talking about it seem not to recognize what a FISA application is. A FISA application is actually a warrant, just like a search warrant. In order to get a FISA search warrant, you need an affidavit signed by a career federal law enforcement officer who swears that the information in the affidavit is true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. And that's the way we operate. And if it's wrong, sometimes it is, if you find out there's anything incorrect in there, that person is going to face consequences. Sometimes there are innocent errors, but if not, you can face discipline or potentially even prosecution.
Well, thank you. That was delivered at the Freedom Forum by Mr. Rosenstein, May of 2018, and you described the way the system's supposed to work. And what brings us here is the fact it didn't work that way. We know now, based on the Horowitz report that was delivered to this committee in December 2019, that the FISA warrant application process did not work the way Mr. Rosenstein described it in 2018. What do we know? We know that exculpatory information was withheld from the court. We know, according to Mr. Horowitz, without the Steele dossier, paid for by the Democratic Party, prepared by a former British agent working with a Russian subsource, without that dossier, there would have been no warrant issued against Carter Page. We also now know that an email was doctored to get the FISA warrant by a lawyer at the FBI. So why are we here? We're trying to find out how that happened. We're trying to find out how Crossfire Hurricane got so off script. And our desire is to make sure it never happens again. Every American should be concerned by the fact that the Inspector General found criminal wrongdoing, abuse of power, and a warrant application against Carter Page, a advisor to the Trump campaign, and we're here to try to find out who knew what when. Find out, did Mr. Rosenstein, did you know that the subsource disavowed the dossier in January 2017 to the FBI? Says a bunch of bar talk and hearsay. Did you know that the FBI lawyer doctored an email showing a relationship between Mr. Page and the CIA. He changed it where there was no relationship. Did you know that? And if you didn't know it, why? And we're going to ask everybody who signed the warrant, did you know? And if you didn't know, why? And now that you do know, how do you feel about it? And I want the country to understand that the Mueller investigation was allowed to go forward with bipartisan support. I remember Senator Coons and Booker coming to me, and Senator Grassley and Senator Tillis, saying, let's make sure that Mueller can do his job without interference. The president was pretty hot when it came to the Mueller investigation, and we came up with legislation to protect the general counsel from being dismissed without cause, to let the country know, let the president know it was important for Mueller to do his job. Now it's important to find out what the hell happened. How could it gotten to be where it wound up being? What evidence, if any, was there in May of 2017 when Mueller was appointed by Mr. Rosenstein that anybody on the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians? Was there a lawful predicate to appoint Mueller to begin with? And we'll be looking at that. And we'll be looking at how the warrant was signed over and over by the highest-ranking officials in this country and given to a FISA court on 4 different occasions over a period of months, and it was full of lies and criminally altered. I hope you want to know that. I sure do.
No, he doesn't.
And you got to remember the people running the Mueller investigation are the same people that were running Crossfire Hurricane, at least until they got fired. So the warrant application that Mr. Rosenstein signed in June of 2017, the last application against Carter Page, who prepared the application? Remember Strzok and Page, March 3rd, 2016? God, Trump is a low...
I keep watching that arm, the hand that he's using to speak with. It's gated into himself, and he keeps chicken winging it, like a chicken wing. And he's doing it so much that it's actually no longer just an emphasis of anything. It's stress. Now, we already know that he's stressed about this hearing. But as he goes through some of the facts that are coming out, the key players in it, it's just really manifesting itself. He's swinging around his chair. He's chicken winging it. He's stressed. And again, those of you who do not know, this whole thing from the very beginning was started by Lindsey and his little compadre, McCain. But we'll protect Lindsey and say that, Clinton paid for it. The DNC paid for it. Whatever narrative apparently we're supposed to believe now.
I decided that appointing a special counsel to complete the investigation appropriately and to promote public confidence in its conclusions. As we now know, the eventual conclusions were that Russians committed crimes seeking to influence the election, and Americans did not conspire with them. A special counsel appointment was consistent with Department of Justice precedent. Attorney General Bill Barr and Attorney General Janet Reno each in the 1990s had appointed special counsels in several cases when they concluded that a prosecutor with some degree of independence from the department could best resolve sensitive matters. Now, recently, Attorney General Barr has assigned U.S. attorneys to take charge of significant investigations. But in May of...
So he goes into, most recently, Barr appoints U.S. attorneys, and you actually see his fist flex in and then release rather quickly. So he's got tells galore. He's one of my favorites as far as being able to watch him because his body just loves to talk. So we see that little movement in the fist right as he's saying those words. And we know that that is the stressor. The fact that Attorney General Barr has appointed U.S. attorneys. I am not a law scholar. I can assume that that may not be good in Rosenstein's mindset.
2017, there were only 3 confirmed United States attorneys remaining.
And then we see the fists even go tighter as he continues to speak this.
All Obama administration appointees who had been ordered to resign and had been permitted to hold over for just a few months.
And then it just stays tight. He opens it up to give emphasis, and then it just stays clenched tight. So we're not happy that AG Barr has appointed U.S. attorneys, and we're not happy that none of those U.S. attorneys are Obama holdovers or Obama appointed. And then you begin to paint the picture of Rosenstein's mind just by these little bit of tells and the words that go with it. Not that U.S. attorneys are good or that they're reputable individuals. It's the fact that his words say and his body language agrees that they're not Obama attorneys.
Some people confuse special counsels and independent counsels. Independent counsels are appointed by federal judges. The Department of Justice does not supervise them. They often expand their jurisdiction, and they usually investigate for many years. In contrast, Special Counsel Mueller was supervised by the department with jurisdiction that was limited both in scope and in duration. I asked the special counsel to review each criminal allegation the FBI considered relevant to Russian election influence operations and recommend whether to close the matter.
Side note, the last video that we did on Rosenstein in a previous testimony, we found out that whatever scope or expansion that Mueller wanted, Rosenstein agreed to it all.
To investigate because it might be relevant to Russian election meddling, or to refer the matter to another prosecutor. I also established a supervisory chain of command within the department. Highly qualified department attorneys met regularly with the special counsel team to review recommendations about which matters to investigate and to approve significant steps in consultation with me.
So he goes in talking about this chain of command that he created. You actually see his hand shake before it goes back into a fist again. And this is in contrast to what we've seen of Rosenstein before. He was confident prior. He was gleefully shaking hands with all the government employees. He was happy, stress-free. And now we're not seeing that. We're seeing high stress and that shaking some fear.
Whenever the special counsel proposed charges for which a United States attorney would need approval from the Department of Justice, from a headquarters division, those charges were reviewed, as usual, by the Tax Division, the National Security Division, or the Criminal Division. Well, I understand that today's hearing may focus on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. When I served as Deputy Attorney General, every FBI FISA application was written by agents and attorneys, reviewed by supervisors, sworn under oath by a federal agent, and certified by the FBI director. Before any application was submitted to the court, a senior department official, either the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, or the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, met with National Security Division supervisors to ensure that the application set forth a valid legal and factual basis. Ultimately, each application was submitted to a federal judge who decided whether it set forth probable cause that justified the issuance of a warrant. Every application that I approved appeared to be justified based on the facts it alleged. And the FBI was supposed to be following protocols to ensure that every fact was verified. But investigative reviews published by the Inspector General in December 2019 and March of 2020, those investigative reviews revealed that the FBI was not following the protocols and that significant errors appeared in applications filed in connection with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. The Inspector General concluded, and I quote, that so many basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate hand-picked teams on one of the FBI's most sensitive investigations that FBI officials expected would be subject to close scrutiny, raised significant questions regarding the FBI chain of command's management and supervision of the FISA process. Now, Senators, whenever agents or prosecutors make serious mistakes or engage in misconduct, the Department of Justice needs to take remedial action. And if existing policies fall short, those policies need to be changed. Ensuring the integrity of governmental processes is essential to promoting public confidence in the rule of law. But while it is necessary to correct mistakes and to punish wrongdoers, It certainly should not go unsaid today that our law enforcement agencies are filled with men and women who act with integrity. As we watch them deal with extraordinarily difficult circumstances throughout the country this week, we should take this opportunity to let them know that they have our appreciation and our support. In conclusion, I know that the members of this committee share a commitment to the principles of the Department of Justice. I look forward to addressing your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenstein, and I want to echo what you said. Most FBI agents, most law enforcement officers risk their lives and do a job to protect our country, and we appreciate them. But every now and then things get off script, and that's what brings us here today. You signed a warrant application.
He is shaking so bad with that, just that pen. And we have the wild-eyed look. You don't see it in the forehead. It's just the eyes are opened up so wide. Deer in headlights.
In June of, I think, 2017 to get the Carter Page warrant renewed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked at the Horowitz report?
Yes, I have. I have it with me, Senator.
If you knew then what you know now, would you have signed the warrant application?
No, I would not.
Okay. And the reason you wouldn't have is because...
No, I would not. And you'll see a flex in the eyes on that. It's not any direction. It's just a quick flex. When you have this much fear coming through, it means you knew. How much you knew, I don't really know, but that he knew. We are seeing fear. We're seeing that deer in headlights in the eyes with that flex open, just on the mention of FISA, because those were the things he signed off on.
Because Mr. Horowitz found that exculpatory information was withheld from the court. Is that correct?
Among other reasons, yes.
Yeah, and somebody actually altered an email.
So you see a little bit of relax. His body swings into the movement of, among other things. And his eyes actually relax down in just that split little second as well. So you can see, that to him is his out. Things were left out. Again, you knew they were up to no good. How much you knew is debatable.
Correct.
Right. So there were 17 violations that Mr. Horowitz found, but I can't stress enough to the country that he found the most egregious of all. The dossier was the only reason the Carter Page warrant was issued to begin with. And in January 2017, the man who provided Steele with all the information.
So we're talking about the Carter Page warrant, and then you see a whole lot of shaking in those fingers, and the wild eye is back, and he's just staring in front of him. Yeah, he's terrified.
Thanks to General Barr, Brady material relating to Flynn has been released. So too has the Flynn transcript with the Russian ambassador. Those materials include records that show, one, the FBI planned to close the Flynn case until Strzok interceded. Two, that FBI notes that show the FBI may have deliberately set Flynn up to prosecute him or get him fired. Three, the FBI had no derogatory information on Flynn. And four, there was no legitimate factual predicate to interview him. Mr. Rosenstein, you and Mueller withheld these records from Congress and Flynn's legal team. In June of 2018, I met with you to discuss the Flynn case and my other oversight request. You suggested to me that Congress should be satisfied with the facts contained in the plea agreement. In light of all the Brady material that has finally been released, it's clear you were misleading me, Congress, and the American people when you suggested that we should be satisfied with Flynn's plea agreement. Question. The whole point of the Mueller investigation was to uncover interference in the 2016 election. Yet Mueller ignored the fact that intelligence reports from before he was appointed said the Steele dossier contained Russian disinformation. Remember, that's the same dossier that was paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign. Did you instruct Mueller to investigate the origin of the dossier And if not, why not?
Thank you, Senator. First of all, I certainly did not intend to mislead you or anybody else. And if I could just address that briefly, because I do recall that conversation, Senator, and my view was that the case was pending.
So here, remember what we said about putting things around the desk. Stress. If you don't have control on the outside, you tend to try and micromanage things on the inside.
Pending in court. And there's a longstanding principle of the department that when a case is pending in court, we let the judicial process work through, and we don't engage with Congress about pending cases. And that's the only reason why I was reluctant to disclose information, not that I was concealing anything. I obviously didn't know that there was exculpatory evidence. And with regard to the evidence that's in the record now, because it was filed by the department, I'm not going to express any opinion about that.
And so as you see this, he's not giving very good eye contact. He's in avoidance. His body even is angled downward along with his eyeballs. He's doing an appropriate brain search when it comes to excuses. And we're still micromanaging the things that are in front of us. To me, this tell is his tell. Everyone has a different tweak on what it looks like when they lie. And this looks like this is how Rosenstein's manifestation of a lie looks.
I'm going to wait and hear what General Barr has to say about it. But much of that, Senator, was news to me. With regard to the other question you asked, Senator, keep in mind that my goal with regard to the special counsel was to keep that investigation focused and get it resolved as expeditiously as possible. I knew that an investigation of the Steele dossier and the origins of the Russia investigation would be far more complicated and take far more time. And I didn't believe, and I don't think General Barr believes, we need an independent special counsel from outside the department to do that. General Barr is trusting U.S. Attorney Durham to do that, and I think that's a reasonable decision. So, no, I did not ask Director Mueller to do that, and I'm actually grateful that we wrapped up the special counsel phase in 22 months. And if there's other information to be uncovered, I'm confident it will be uncovered.
Okay. When you approved the fourth and final FISA against Carter Page, were you aware that intelligence reports warned that the Steele dossier was a product of Russian disinformation? Were you also aware that the Steele's report were not fully verified and that some of Steele's sources supported Clinton? If so, why did you approve the FISA?
No, I did not. And if I could explain, Senator, I know the time is limited, but the Steele dossier is not in the FISA. It was not submitted to the court. There's information from Steele that's in the application. But my understanding, and again, I reviewed a lot of FISA applications during my tenure, my understanding is that what's in the affidavits is verified. And so the Steele dossier and all the nonsense that was in the media about these allegations that have been made, that's not in the FISA application. What's in the FISA application, my understanding, was verified information. And of course, there is other information. It's not just information that came from Mr. Steele.
As he sits there and talks about his understanding, which is nothing more than lawyer speak. And I'm trying to give myself an out, even though he's supposed to read it to sign off on it. It reminds me of the crime shows I've been watching. It's like when criminals, when they're being interrogated, and they say, well, I didn't know they were going to murder him. But they knew they were there to rob them. Rod Rosenstein knew they were there to take the presidency away.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, as I think you know, we're here to talk about bias and alleged acts on that bias. And it.
All right, I have to make a side note because we're so used to looking at the micromanagers that when I see this desk in Congress, it's like, you know you're about to get with someone who just don't give a damn. Remember what I said in the beginning? You put your stuff around so you don't accidentally knock a drink on yourself, but your stuff's in front of you where you can find it. And you notice his Purell is over to the side, his drinks are over to the side where he can't knock it over, and it's just a mess of paper in front of him. Now usually, and there are exceptions to every rule, it's because they just don't give a damn. This is what it looks like. Take it or leave it. This is my mind. These are my beliefs. I don't have to hide.
It seems to me that it's one thing to talk about bias as a concept or an intellectual proposition. but it's quite another thing to see it in living color. I want to just read you a couple of emails that I think demonstrate the bias in living color and the promise to act on that bias. August 16, 2015, Peter Strzok. Bernie Sanders is an idiot like Trump. Figure they cancel each other out. February 12, 2016, Lisa Page. Trump has no dignity or class. He simply cannot be president. March 3rd, 2016, Lisa Page. God, Trump is a loathsome human. March 3rd, 2016, Peter Strzok. Oh my God, Trump's an idiot. March 3rd, 2016, Peter Strzok. God, Hillary should win 100 million to nothing. March 3rd, 2016, Lisa Page. Did you hear Trump made a comment about the size of his penis? Only she didn't use the word penis earlier. This man cannot be president. July 18, 2016, Lisa Page. Donald Trump is an enormous douche. August 2016, Lisa Page. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? August 2016, Peter Strzok. No. No, he won't. We will stop it. Now, Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were not junior G-men or G-women. They were senior officials at the FBI. And as I understand it, please correct me, General, if I'm wrong, they were navel deep in Misfire Hurricane and the Mueller investigation. Navel deep. They were decision makers. And you made these emails public, which I appreciate. But what we're talking about here is not a routine run-of-the-mill FBI case. This was an investigation of the President of the United States of America. And this was the investigation of a presidential campaign. And here's what I've never understood. When these emails became public, and you knew about them, when you learned about them, you did the right thing, you made them public. I presume you made them available to Mr. Mueller. Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were removed from the Mueller investigation. Nobody gets fired around here. It's easier to divorce your spouse than to fire somebody. But why didn't you or somebody else, some other senior official at the Department of Justice, or the director of the FBI, or somebody else senior at the FBI say, wait a minute, stop a second. We're investigating a president and a presidential campaign. I'm going to ask some hard questions here. Maybe I shouldn't have been trusting people that are telling me this stuff. If you or some of your colleagues in the Trump administration had done that, you would have seen that the FBI had already said General Flynn didn't do anything wrong. And that the FBI agents who tried to entrap him at the White House had said, well, he's not lying. And y'all, I'm not just putting it on you, but y'all would have found that the Steele dossier was unadulterated BS. And you would have found that some people at the FBI had been lying to you, lying about on the warrant applications. And maybe you would have said, wow, does the Mueller investigation really need to be trying to put Carter Page and General Flynn? I mean, what's going on here? But nobody did that. And that bothers me.
Yep. I appreciate your question, Senator. First of all, I have the report open to the appropriate page. You are correct with regard to Inspector Horowitz's conclusions. He did point out that employees are entitled to political views, and I think it's important to recognize. I'm sure we have people with strong views on the other side, too. The question is, are you following the rules?
We have people with strong views on the other side, too. I like how he actually puts that away from himself. He lifts that arm up in his hand and puts it away from himself without looking at it. So it's not his views. That's all you need to know right there. It's not part of his views. He's with the other view of Strzok and Page.
Rules, and are you articulating those views in a way that will cast doubt upon the integrity of the process?
And you notice those views, Strzok and Page's views, which we now know are his views as well. He uses that hand that he put Strzok and Page on to literally point at himself. You're questioning the integrity just because they have views. And that's why Rod Rosenstein is so easy to read, because it's too damn easy.
When that information came to our attention, Senator, I think we did the right thing. Inspector Horowitz brought it to my attention and the attention of Director Mueller. Director Mueller took appropriate action. The FBI director transferred Mr. Strzok. The investigation wasn't concluded yet, so he wasn't able to impose any discipline. I believe the woman involved left the department voluntarily. With regard to the status of the investigation, Senator, obviously, fortunately, we're at the conclusion and we're able to say that no Americans conspired with the Russians.
And so you're seeing, again, micromanaging. He literally is just marking stuff down that he's already said or something just done that has nothing to do with what's coming out of his mouth. He's not giving his good eye contact. And we're seeing Rosenstein's tell for I am a liar. I am flicking my silver tongue to entice you to believe the words coming out of my mouth and to ignore reality and what you see.
The impression at the time was that there was proper predication for that investigation. And Inspector General Horowitz agreed with that. There may be more information.
And again, he's just so easy. Inspector Horowitz agreed with that, and he's reaching over and he's grabbing the report of the Horowitz report. That's his anchor. That's his silver tongue lick. That is his out.
When it comes to light, and Mr. Durham may find that, and then I think we ought to take that into consideration as well.
Mr. Durham may find that, and you see he starts to micromanage the other paper on the other side. I find that interesting. People don't tend to realize that they do this. But on one side, Rosenstein has his outs, his mental allies, the Horowitz report, whatever giant binder the other thing is. And on the other side, apparently, he has what is not his ally, what is not his out. And apparently it's Durham, whatever he's got on that paper. It's not good. And you see how his body is angled away from it, and he's trying to micromanage it, but failing.
But with regard to all those cases, Senator, all I can tell you is, and I think one more important point I'd like to make, which is why didn't we just throw the whole thing out? It's because there are a lot more people involved in this. It's not just Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page. There are dozens, perhaps scores of federal agents and attorneys involved. And I hope and believe.
I'm not alone. It's not me. I didn't do this. There's hundreds of agents that did this. Looking at you from the side of my eye, I leave you with this. What do you do when you have so many people that are committing crimes blatantly? And we're not talking about criminal acts at this point. We're really talking with the amount of people involved, a culture. And what do you do with a culture that is criminal? How do you punish it? How do you stop it? And how do you keep that from rising again? If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.